Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host, Yeukai Kechidori.
Hey, welcome back. I'm so excited about you joining us perhaps for the first time, or if you're returning to this podcast, welcome back. You know what? I am so excited about Danny joining here today to talk about how you can increase your confidence, being able to speak directly to the camera, and also boost your confidence so that you can sell or promote your products to the public. Listen, if there's one thing that truly can separate you from the rest is your ability to communicate your business, what you sell, how you serve people, and anything else. So today I'm excited because Dan is going to show you how you can effectively do that in a way that will set you apart from the rest. Danny, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
You know, Danny, I was talking to a gentleman before we invited you to join us here, and this gentleman, maybe we will leave his name out on it, but I know he's listening. You know, one of his main struggles, even though he's been in business for 10 years, is just get out of his own way and start selling, or the way I like to put it, start serving directly to his customer through this medium. And you just came at the right time, and I'm hoping you can help him today.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
That's awesome. Now, if you haven't met Danny Greeves, he's a little bit about him, and then if I miss something there, Danny's going to fill in the missing part. But Danny is a coach, a physiotherapist, hypnotherapist, author, and a speaker. His mission is to help entrepreneurs, business owners like you and I, to confidently express ourselves and feel inspired to help others. We get to be able to share what we truly believe through sharing our stories, like Danny is going to be helping us here today. Danny has done so many things. In fact, he has received many awards, one of which is the Prestige 2021 Life Coach of the Year Award in London in Southeast England. And he's also the author of the 6 Steps to Self-Confidence and the Best Advice for Speakers, and along many, many other people. In fact, he's written books along influencers like Dr. Demartini and one of my favorite, Bob Proctor. Well, there's a lot here I can tell you about, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let Danny introduce himself and highlight some of his major achievements as an entrepreneur. Danny, let people into your world.
Thank you very much. What an introduction. So my journey really started as an employee. So my journey started not even being aware of the business world. And it was actually through reading books and listening to podcasts and actually opening myself up to new opportunities that I was able to actually take a step into the business world. And what I found is that even though I was really confident in what I could deliver, I knew my service was valuable, I knew it helped people, the real block and obstacle that I had was actually being able to shout about it, being able to talk about it, being able to share it, not in a way that sort of comes across as big-headed, but to just share the value that I have. Yeah. And as I worked on that and actually learned how I could express myself confidently, that then allowed me to start speaking on podcasts, start speaking at the Excel Centre in London, at the Birmingham NEC, start going on the radio, and there reaches a point where expressing yourself just becomes fun. So for anyone out there who hasn't quite reached that point yet, the trick is just to keep going, because when you get there, you'll be able to enjoy it and really share it.
Absolutely. You have a very interesting, story, like a background story. Before you started all this journey, or before you became very confident in communicating your ideals, you were single for 27 years, and well, I'll let you tell the story.
Oh, when you say single for 27 years, it still sounds so long. Well, to give everyone a bit of a backstory, when I was like in my early teens, one thing that I just really struggled with was telling people how I really felt. Yeah. So I would bottle things up, I would sort of keep them inside. And where that really held me back was in relationships. So trying to find a proper relationship where I could feel like I could be myself. And it got to the point where it was causing me such distress because I just wasn't making any fortune, wasn't making any progress, that when I was 27, I was in front of a class and I was doing my work, and the teacher of the class got me to try and speak to the room, and that ended up not going very well. But what it did show me is that actually I had some issues to work on. So I found a coach who I wanted to work with, and after my first session, I met my wife 10 days later.
I love that.
So it was just such a transformation, and it was that change that made me realize that actually my real inspiration is to help people share what they want to share with the world.
Yeah, absolutely love that. I want to point something out if you're just joining us, something that I truly believe that every entrepreneur have to go through to experience some kind of a breakthrough. See, what Danny did there is he identified an area that perhaps needed improvement and went on to get a coach. And within 10 days of working with a highly recommended, trusted coach, I had a breakthrough, not only in personal life, but also in other areas of life. So what am I saying, Bill, if you're listening there, I know you're listening, is think about the area that is, that you're not pretty happy about, or an area that you think you can do better. Maybe you're doing good right now, but you can even go a step further. Maybe it's time to look at who else is out there. Maybe it's Danny here, as we are talking, that could help you. Reach out to them. You just don't know, what's going to happen. That help from somebody else might open the doors out. That perhaps it could not be opened by somebody else. Here's what I like to tell people, is sometimes you cannot see the picture for being in the frame. You want somebody from without that can say, oh, just do it this way, just tweak just this part, and you'll be great. And today, we're going to be learning how you can speak confidently on the camera and serve people. In other words, sell your services and really, really help people. Danny, coming back to you, I know it wasn't a plain easy going for you to just get on the camera or just be confident. You must have come across certain roadblocks or certain difficulties. Would you share with our listeners here today?
Yeah, I would say the main roadblock that I faced, and it's actually one I think a lot of entrepreneurs face, is that when they think about improving their speaking skills and getting on camera, the general guidance is to just keep practicing it and eventually you'll get better.
Yes.
Now, what I found is not only does that make the journey really frustrating and unenjoyable, it actually starts to put you off it. So speaking becomes more of an obligation. It becomes something you feel like you have to do, and that creates the completely wrong chemistry to be able to authentically connect with your audience. So when we combine speaking practices, because speaking is a practice, it takes time, but when we combine it with actually shifting our mindset, then that actually combines nicely and gives us the biggest outcome. And what I've found is the biggest obstacle people face is that when they go to get on camera and when they go to speak, all of their attention is inwards. It's thinking about, what are people going to say about me? What are people going to think about me? What if I do something wrong? And the mistake they're making here is their focus should be outwards. They should be focusing on the value that they can bring, the message that they're here to share. And when we make that shift, speaking on camera just becomes looser, it becomes freer, it becomes easier. So that's the biggest roadblock that I faced and how I overcame it.
Amazing, absolutely. One thing I like about looking outwardly and focus on the value is because you get yourself out of the way. Because often it's us being in the way that stops us from actually helping others. And I find when I even do my podcasting or just do my training, right now we're in the middle of training people how to start, scale, and monetize their podcasts, is when I take my focus off, my imperfections and focusing on how I can help somebody get a little bit closer to their desired goal, I deliver, I over-deliver. And so, if you're listening again, Bill, you may want to do exactly that. Let's dive deep here now, Danny. If you were to do it all over again, right now, starting, from scratch, knowing what you know now, if somebody is going to confidently stand in front of the camera, perhaps including what you've already covered, what will be the steps that they need to take on?
Absolutely. Love this question. So I think the most important place to start is getting grounded in your values. So for a lot of entrepreneurs, that will also be expressing the values of the business that they run. But begin by getting really in contact with your values, because the more you're in contact with your values, the more authenticity that comes across.
Right.
Because actually, people don't mind if you make a mistake speaking here, or if you go blank a little bit there, if you're genuine and authentic. So the only way that we can get there is finding out what your values are. So what I'd like to ask people to do is think about how they started out, think about what's important to them now, and what we can see is the challenges that they overcame actually are the things that are now important to them. And when people make that connection, that really grounds them in who they are, and then that sort of liberates them to start to speak up. Does that make sense?
Totally, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, carry on.
For those perhaps who are struggling with, creating those values or identifying values, do you have any resource they can go to, or maybe a cheat sheet that perhaps they can access, or anywhere you can point them to?
Yes, absolutely. I can attach a cheat sheet to this show, so they've got free access to it. In a quick run through, what I would have people do is break their life down into maybe 10-year chunks,
right,
and then think about what was the main obstacle they had in that period. So for me, for example, between 10 and 20, the big obstacle was actually finding a relationship. And when they go through that, they'll see a series of common threads about what challenges they faced.
Right.
And then when they connect to what's important to them now, they'll see that actually they needed those challenges to be able to get to where they are now. So now my high values are on my business and my relationship, but I needed to go through those struggles to be able to really appreciate them the way I do now.
Beautiful. I love that example, because everybody can identify with the challenges and the struggle, and figuring out what actually made them truly love that. What would you say perhaps is the second thing to focus on once this whole value situation is sorted out?
Definitely the next thing to focus on is clearing out any emotional baggage you have around speaking.
Right.
So for a lot of people, this would have started fairly early in life. It might have been an event that happened at school. It might have been an event in an early team meeting. It might have been something that didn't quite go right. And actually what our mind does is it bookmarks any event that we perceive to be frightening or scary or painful. So then as we go forwards in time, anything that our mind can link back to that original event, it fires off the alarm bells, it gets the stress signals going, which then impedes our performance.
Yeah.
So when we can clear those old memories, actually it frees us from any of the old chains, and that actually allows us to start to vocalize our thoughts and share our ideas openly.
Yeah, love that. How best can they do that? Especially, in this time, perhaps they are doing this alone. You and I know that sometimes the world of business owners can be lonely. When you've got employees, they are looking up to you, and sometimes they don't share with you exactly what you need to do. So if you don't have, the mastermind group that you go on, and if they are alone, what can they do right now to clear out those emotional baggages?
So the first task is to identify the moment specifically. Right. So our brain has a function called episodic memory, which means we can basically travel backwards in time and reconnect with a specific moment. So for example, a business owner that I worked with recently, they had a memory when they were in school around 13. They were speaking in front of the class, and basically the class laughed at them. And as a result of that, any time going forwards, actually the idea of speaking in front of people was scary. Right. So what we did in order to break that connection is we actually looked at how did that moment benefit them? What did they learn from it? How did it teach them a lesson? What was the advantages of having that experience? How did it make them more responsible? And when we cycled through these questions, the painful moment turned into a valuable lesson, and then the mind was able to let it go.
Absolutely love that. It's very simple, yet very effective, and this is a good work to practice. If you want to clear your way out of whatever is holding you from living. Earlier on, before we started recording, you mentioned about some of the success stories you have created for others. Would you, at this point, share maybe one or two of those success stories, and then we'll carry on to talk about other steps that follows what we've covered already?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my actual recent clients, who is a new business owner, so they were an entrepreneur, and they had never been in front of the camera before. They'd never done any speaking engagements. They'd never done any recording. And they knew, because of the way that the times are changing, that actually video content is going to become more and more important. So they reached out and we worked together. And within the space of 12 weeks, they presented to 170 people who they'd never spoke to before. Yeah. They recorded daily video content that they released about what they're interested in and what services they can provide. This then got them an opportunity to go on 2 different podcasts. And from their video content, they were then picked up by a sports brand to then do a commercial for their company. So in the very short space of time, just by speaking, just by getting on camera and sharing their thoughts, it led to new business opportunities, new revenue, new opportunities, and it made a huge increase in their overall sort of visibility.
I love that story because it really typifies the real experience that people can get. Just get out there, get out of your way, and just go out and serve people. Be visible, be seen. And that was one of the reasons I created a podcast, because I wanted to get into people's homes and people's ears. And this has truly changed my business because, I'm putting myself out there. And I know it works. And many of our clients, are getting the results because they're stepping out, helping people right where they are. One thing I like about the video, just like you and I are recording this right now, is it connects you quicker and faster than anything out there like a post, because people can see your reactions. And they want to do business with you because they feel like they know you, and the trust factor quickly builds up because they can see you straight away on there. Going back to what we were talking about, the steps to building that confidence to step out of your own way and be in front of a camera, we covered already. If you're joining us here, we covered how to do the very first step, which is about know your values, be grounded in values. And then we move on to clearing any baggage around your concept of speaking. What will be the next thing, Danny, that we can share with our audience here today?
So the next thing is what we call owning the traits.
Right.
So I'm sure we're all aware of speakers around the world who we find inspiring. So, for example, one person who I really was inspired by was Barack Obama. The way he speaks is just incredible. So what I'd recommend people to do is pick one speaker who they know, who they really admire, and then identify what is it about them specifically that they most admire.
Right.
So when it comes to Barack Obama, in my example, the thing that I most admired about him was his articulation of his ideas. It was just so clear and so fresh. So once we've labeled that trait that we're looking for, then we want you to examine your life and find out all of the times and all of the places where you do that exact same trait. So the trick here will be that it will be in a different form to the way that you've seen it in the speaker. So it might be in the way that you speak to family members. It might be the way you speak to friends. It might be the way you speak to clients. But I guarantee you will have that trait somewhere. It just won't be recognizable in the way that you currently want it. So when we go back and actually find out, this is where I did that, this is where I did that, you start to build your own confidence because you're building your own database about where you've already got it.
Yeah.
And from here, you can then maybe keep a journal or even just a note section in your phone. So when you notice it happening again, you start to collect the data. And the more data you get, the more certain you get. And that actually then feeds through to your speaking.
I love that. Absolutely love that. For me, what stands out is identifying role models, people that are doing it or doing what you want to do. Truly, for me, even if I look back my life, in the area that I've excelled, probably 90% of those, or even 99%, I've had a model, somebody that I admire, just like Danny has mentioned here, and try to emulate and perhaps grew those features in myself for me to be doing. For example, with the podcast, when I started, I remember listening to a lady in Canada who became my coach actually for about 6 months. She was showing me how to do that. And I'm now doing it. Unfortunately, she, left, doesn't do any podcast anymore. But I admire the way she communicated, and I ended up building what we now have, which is an incredible podcast. It was because of her, really, truly. Mary, that is her name. So if you are looking to be on the speaking stage, speaking to the camera, think about it, just like what Danny said. Now, who can you follow and build on those ones? Love that, Danny. Maybe the last one before we talk about your business experience as a business owner here. Is there any final thing that you want to share with the audience here today?
The one final thing that I'd like to share is that the more we are attached to a certain outcome, the more we put pressure on ourselves.
Right.
So when we create an expectation for a video to be perfect, that's often what gives us enough fear to not do it. So when we can actually embrace the idea that actually video content and speaking on camera is a journey, it's not a destination, then you can take some of the pressure off yourself and just compare yourself to your last effort. So you can see the progress that continues, but actually your target is never to be perfect. Your target is to be yourself and keep improving.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Thank you. If you just missed that one, this was for me, it was a game changer when I was starting out. Imagine when we started podcasting, there were not so many podcasters at the time in 2014. Now it has gained the popularity. Everybody wants to be a podcaster. Back then, I was so much attached to the outcome. I wanted it to be perfect, just like I said. And it delayed me from seeing the results I wanted until my coach, Mary, said, you know what, forget about that. Just like what you were saying, just focus on being better really every single time you do, and you become better as you go. So absolutely love that for sure. In fact, I'll share one sentence that has helped me understand this part more. My coach said, if you are not embarrassed with your first outcome, it means you waited too long to actually go out and serve people. Because you have to be, in her words, be embarrassed by your first output you put out there, because you just got out and you're focused in helping people than in looking good or in sounding a certain way. So I want to encourage you, if you've got a message and if you know what you have can help people, get out of your own way. Let's go and help people. Is that right, Danny?
Absolutely, yeah. And I love that phrase as well about being embarrassed. I think it sums it up perfectly. The journey is progress.
Absolutely. Danny, I want to focus for a bit right now on you as a business owner. A lot of business owners are having to go through different transition right now. Given the pandemic, a lot of people had to pivot or maybe close certain aspects of their business and then, bring something new. How are you doing business? How are you growing your business now? What sort of perhaps marketing strategies that you're using right now?
I am fortunate in the fact that I had a vision and an idea that actually coaching and therapy would move online anyway. So I've actually been working online since 2015. Beautiful. So the wonderful thing about that is I've currently got clients in about 4 different countries at the moment. So I work in about 3 different time zones. But that means that I'm actually available to people on all different parts of the world, which allows me to grow my brand as much as I can. So one of the big factors for me was being able to be digital and be online so I could work from anywhere. Yeah. And what I've found in terms of approaches is I've been working along the idea of the more quality content that I produce and the more I can get people to connect with my content, the more I get inbound leads. So my main approach at the moment is to create videos that are either educational, that gives people tactics and gives people hints, or informs them and educates them about the services that I offer. So I'm answering questions about the common problems that people have, the way coaching works. I'm giving all the questions to my clients' answers to then draw them in towards me.
Love that. While we are there, Danny, do tell people about Danny's main website, the coaching website, because that's where most of your videos. In fact, there's a great video there actually if you want to know about how to. I'll let you talk about that, Danny, about your website. Otherwise, I'll do this.
So you can find my website at www.dannygreevescoaching.com. And there is a video vault there to get started. So these are all brief 3-minute videos, and each of them either has a speaking technique or a confidence booster. So there's things that you can actually learn about straight away. And as well as that, on my website, you can also take my Confident Communicator scorecard. So this will actually ask you a few questions. It usually takes a couple of minutes to fill in, but it'll help you identify where your main block is, and it will give you an exercise to actually start working on it. So in a very short space of time, you can start to make some progress.
Love that. In fact, I wanted you to notice the training on how to build your confidence. If you go on to, let me just go on to it right now and let people know exactly where to find that, because when I was listening to it, Danny, I have to be honest with you, I got hooked at your training and and I started listening to it. And I want everybody here who's listening to go check this out for yourself. So you just go to DannyGreevesCoaching.com, and when you are on there, there is a video vault, and not the video vault, there is a plethora of videos there, and there is the middle one from the top, which I found really, really, really good, and it talks about confidence and self-esteem, and let me just bring it up here so that people. It's the one about are you making your affirmation making you anxious? I think that's the one. Let me just.
Yeah.
And here, this particular video was really good because it helps you create affirmation that are going to support you. Highly recommend that. So just go straight to DannyGreevesCoaching.com /video vault. You'll be helped greatly there. Love the work that Danny is doing. In fact, you teach with clarity. You simplify things there, man. I appreciated that for sure.
Thank you. The simpler we can make it, the easier we can do it.
Yes. Now, before we wrap up here, one of the roadblocks that you found when you were transitioning from being a therapist was mindset, because you had the technical abilities, but not so much of the business technicalities. Do talk to us about the journey, what you had to do, how you overcame that, and what other people perhaps can learn from that.
Yes. For me, it was quite a bit of a shock. I was under the impression, as I think many people are, that when I own my own business, it will be fun and exciting and it'll be just pure joy. And what I quickly found out is that all of my training was about delivering my service, but I just didn't know anything about how to set things up, how to market myself, and how to actually handle sales conversations. So what I mainly did initially was just find as much quality content as I could. So that involved lots of podcasts, that involved lots of training videos. And then as I went through that, I looked at and found business coaches. Yeah. So I found a business accelerator course, which actually took me through the basics. And after completing that, I actually found that I had a bit of a grasp on things. Yeah. And then I was following the path that had taken me there. I would identify certain coaches who aligned with my values, and then I would ask them to work with me on one specific element. So, for example, I got a sales coach to really sharpen my sales conversations. I got a marketing coach to really work on my marketing. And it didn't happen overnight. Yeah. And it didn't happen quite in the linear fashion that I planned it. But over time, I just gathered more resources and more skilled. And then I could start to delegate the bits that weren't important to me.
Love that. I'm glad that you brought it the fact that it did not happen as you expected, because that usually is the case. Because as you go deeper into business, you figure out that you don't know this. And it's an important part of the business, if you're to use that as an equation, for example, and you keep on learning. And if you think you're going to get there in 2 years' time, you might get there in 3 years' time, simply because you have to learn some other things that you didn't know were there that you needed to learn about. So just give yourself a bit of a grace there, a bit of room to learn something new and become better. But what I love most there that you pointed out, Danny, and I hope that the listener catches this part, is you constantly put yourself around people who were better at a certain area. be it sales, be it marketing, and you were not intimidated by how good they were, but you wanted to learn from them, and that has made you great as today in your business, which is wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is a really good point about not being scared or intimidated, just being there to learn, just being open-minded and being open to what they can teach.
Love that. Final words to our listeners here, Danny.
I would encourage everyone to really connect to what is the idea that they would love to share.
Yeah.
And crystallize that in a way that really resonates with you. So when you say it to yourself, you almost get a little bit of a goosebumpy feeling, or you get a little bit of a puff in the chest, and really connect to what it is that you want to share, and then just work on being yourself. The more you just allow yourself to be you, the more you'll differentiate yourself, and the more you'll attract people who are on your level.
Oh, amazing. Gosh, man, you are nailing. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, you want to follow Danny Greeves and find out what he's working on, because what we have touched on here today is just a tip of the iceberg. As you can tell, Danny has got enormous knowledge when it comes to this subject. I want you to succeed if you're struggling in this area, or if you know anybody who may be struggling with this, you want to reach out to Danny on social media. Actually, Danny, where else can people find you?
So my Facebook page is Danny Greeves Coaching, nice and simple. And I'm also on Instagram, Danny Greeves, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. So I'm active on most platforms.
Beautiful. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. My final word is pick one thing. We've touched on a lot of things. In fact, I wrote 4 things here that I sort of related with right away. So I want to ask you, pick one thing that you felt like if you implement this in your business today, it is going to move you closer to your goal, and set up a diary or a date that you're going to implement this. Remember what Tony Robbins teaches: never leave a place of discovery without planning how you're going to be implementing that. So you want you to start planning how you're going to implement what Danny has been saying, and come back, share with us, what's happening, what's working for you. If not us, share it with somebody, because when you teach what you are learning, you remember it the most than when you just, listen to it and leave it to it. Just go ahead and tell somebody or show somebody, and you become a master at it. We want you to succeed. Don't do this thing alone. Business owner is even more fun when we work together, when you work with other people, or join a mastermind of some sort, or a regular fellowship group, so that you can be supported on the journey, because it's people like you, Danny, and myself that absolutely make the world a better place. With that said, I want to invite you, if you're looking to join our program, How to Start, Scale, and Monetize Your Podcast, to reach out to my support team at support at Yeukai Business Show, and we'll be able to support you with that. Danny, it's been absolutely a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Incredible. We want to wish you the very best in your next endeavor, and perhaps when time permits and all being well, we would love to have you on one of our shows again sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Finally, live well, live with passion. Know that the best is truly yet to come. And goodbye for now.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18, or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.